Hi guys, welcome back to my channel. It is Angela, and I totally spaced on doing my reading this week, the reading of my book. So I'm doing it today. And if you're just tuning in, it's my book, Memoirs of a Birth Mother. You can get it on Amazon or Barnes and Noble. Barnes and Noble is only ebook, but you can get the actual book on Amazon. And I've been reading a chapter a week last couple weeks, and we left off on chapter 2, I think. Let me double check here. So we're going to read chapter 3 this time. If I can find it. Okay. So, yeah, and if you want to check out the previous videos, they're all on my channel, so you can just scroll through there and find them if you want. And I can actually post a link below for the book on Amazon and Barnes & Noble. So I'm just going to get right into chapter 3. Chapter 3. My childhood did not prepare me for what would become my reality once I met the father of my child. I mean, yes, I was beaten. Yes, I was mentally worn down to the point that I knew I would never make it out of my mother's house alive. You would think that after all that, I would have seen this guy coming. But as much as I was abused in my home, I was just as sheltered, which to me is another form of abuse all on its own. I was not prepared for the real world at all. I thought once I left home, all my troubles would be over. I was wrong. Fraught with both physical and mental abuse, I am still shocked I made it out of that house with most of my mind intact. I know I could have never survived it if it weren't for the grace of God. I know that there were times I was on the verge of death or worse, and yet somehow I lived to tell the tale. What is worse than death, you ask? Well, there are several sordid things an abused child can endure that will make them pray for death long before they've ever had to face it. It becomes the kinder solution in an otherwise impossible situation. It becomes preferable to the vast emptiness and constant pain that is their life. However, as I have said before, even from birth, God gave me the strength and the know-how to survive anything that can be thrown at me. I was put down daily. I was beat daily. My mind became an emotional landmine, explosions everywhere all the time. My mind became my mother's playground. My childhood filled with fear and self-loathing. It was filled with terror that even now tends to creep upon me in the middle of the night, for reasons I've yet to understand. I know it was God that got me through those dark years. Other than being a control freak, my mother had decided long ago that the world was too horrible a place for me to face. I was never allowed out of the house because evil was lurking everywhere. Even going to the mailbox to get the mail became a challenge for me because it was almost too much for her to bear. She would question me with things like, "Where are you going? When will you be back? Really?" Being as the mailbox is only a couple hundred feet from the front door, I began to think my mother was some sort of Nazi freak. Now that I look back at those jaded memories, I think that maybe she has some sort of disorder, but we will never know, as she would never, ever go to a doctor. So being as sheltered as I was, I didn't stand a chance in the big bad world. Hindsight, as they say, is 20/20. I was 18 and finally free of the monsters that haunted me. I couldn't wait to get the hell out of the one-horse town I grew up in, and so when graduation day came, I ran as fast and as far away as my 2 legs would carry me. I left so fast it was as if the hounds of hell were nipping at my heels. The way I felt about this town was the same way I felt about my mother. There was an evil present that eventually affected everyone. I was convinced that sometime in recent history, hell had opened a crack in the earth and the evil was spilling out. Somehow, that crack was in the town I lived in. I knew in my heart of hearts if I didn't leave immediately after graduation, I would never leave. This town seemed to suck the life out of people. No one had the ambition to do, well, anything. No dreams, nothing. They were just happy living on welfare and working at the local fast food place for nothing more than minimum wage. It was like in the movies when you see Satan's lair after the welcome party is over. There's no more party, just a white, bright light of day, a never-ending drag on society. It was a travesty, really. Me, though, I had dreams. Dreams to see the world, dreams to achieve greatness. I realize now it was all part of trying to please my mother. Still, I still am in a way. I knew from a young age that I was unlike the rest of the drones in this town. It just couldn't hold me. I left the minute I graduated and never looked back out of fear that I may just turn into a pillar of salt. To be honest, the one and only reason I had to leave was to get away from my mother. Nothing was ever good enough for her. I was never good enough for her, even now. We don't even speak now, more for my own sanity than anything. I can almost hear her condescending tone now. Yet as I look back on it, now I see that I was a great kid. I did what I was told, I helped cook, I helped clean, and even did the laundry. Maybe that is why I hate doing all of those things now. I was an A student and never even had sex until I was 18. Yet to have her tell it, I was an ungrateful snot that ruined her life. I was the child from hell that could never do anything right. I would never amount to anything in life, according to her, and I swear every time she reminded me of that little fact, there was a satisfied gleam in her eye over the pain she was causing me. When she found out I had had sex for the first time, I was then reduced to nothing more than a whore that would never amount to anything. I should have brought up the fact that my little brother was an out-of-wedlock baby, but I wasn't as brave then as I am now. I always tried to stay off her radar back then, out of sight, out of mind, right. However, all that did was make me invisible to the rest of the world. I became an expert in invisibility. My only goal in life was to get my damn diploma and get the hell out of this soul-sucking town, and so I did. As fast and as far away as my legs could carry me, I was free. Free for the first time in my life. I could do what I wanted. I could say anything I wanted. I could feel or think anything. This was my only thought upon graduating high school. In retrospect, this is very dangerous thinking. With no knowledge of the outside world or of how cruel it could really be, you would think I would have been afraid of anything and everything in this big bad world, yet I felt the opposite. I was brave, too brave in fact, and I ran headlong into anything and everything the world had to offer me. It was a certain high I'd never felt before, and I would have done anything to keep that high going. Everything tastes better when you are no longer in prison. I ran so hard and so fast, I didn't see the oncoming train that was my ex until it was too late. My first taste of freedom when I ran smack dab into his arms, and another kind of living hell altogether. It didn't start out this way, though. It never does. In the beginning. He was loving, he was kind, he treated me like the queen I knew I must be. I just assumed God was making up for the horror of my childhood with the angel he had sent to me. After never having any kind of love or affection bestowed upon me, I ate it up like a dying man in the desert needing water. I was so busy enjoying the freedom from my mother and lapping up whatever bones he threw at me that I missed all the warning signs, and before I knew what was happening, it was too late to just walk away. I say this with the knowledge age has brought me that it is never, ever too late to walk away. The bitch of it all is, I picked him up. I had just moved to a little suburban town outside of Boston. living with my dad, who had never really been in the picture, but let me have my freedom. Too much freedom, if you ask me. I didn't care, though. I was living the dream. Happy for the first time in my life. I was working at a little ice cream parlor, and after closing, I liked to drive around the small town and just be. Windows rolled down, the summer breeze wafting through my dad's truck, and the music, all the music, lilting through the car and out the window. I've learned it is the little things you find peace in. I was driving and enjoying the beginning of summer when there he was, this dark-haired Adonis, walking down the road with a friend. And so for my first act of bravery, I offered him a ride. For years, I blamed myself for the pain I was in, simply because I had been the one to introduce him to myself, into my life. I know better now. Isn't it funny how one simple act can change the entire course of your life in a blink? It always boils down to one simple choice, doesn't it? When we first began dating, he was the picture of the perfect boyfriend, affectionate, kind, loving, and hot. Did I mention hot? I simply couldn't believe someone as handsome as he was would ever notice me. Me, someone who had been invisible all her life, but noticed me, he did. Much later, I would come to regret the fact that he noticed me, but never the beautiful girl he gave me. As you know, I grew up in a very abusive household. I now realize I was starved for affection of any kind, and boy, did he play his part. He poured it on so thick I could never have seen the signs for what they really were. All screaming, danger, run while you still can. And yet, I didn't listen. Which also fed my guilt meter for many, many years. We had a whirlwind romance, and I must say he was very good at manipulating me into falling for him so hard, so fast. This relationship stripped me of any innocence I may have had left in the world, quickly becoming a nightmare. As I said before about hindsight being 20/20, I never got that until I was much older and looked back to that time in my life. There were so many signs that he wasn't right for me, and out of sheer loneliness, I chose not to see them. I craved attention so much I would have accepted it from anyone, and he was there. I remember the day we met like it was yesterday. I offered him a ride, and the instant our eyes met, I knew I was in trouble. His deep brown eyes seemed to sear into me with a look, and since I had never had any kind of serious relationship, I didn't even see the flicker of desire in his eyes for what it was. He and his friend agreed to let me give them a ride home, and we ended up hanging out, the three of us, until the wee hours of the morning. He was a perfect gentleman. I took it as such, and yet now I look back and think that maybe he was just laying the groundwork, even upon our first encounter. He was that good. We saw each other a couple of different days, and I'm still dumbfounded at how quickly he became the very air I breathed. I became addicted to his face and the beauty of what I thought we were starting, even if it was all a lie. It didn't help that he was so stunningly beautiful. Had to be to mask the sheer poison in his heart. Here I was, the girl that had been told by her sadistic mother that she was unlovable, that she was ugly, and no one would ever want her. And he picked me. He told me daily how beautiful I was and how he could see spending an eternity with me. I ate it up. You know the saying, if it seems too good to be true, it probably is. Well, it comes to mind. It was a fairy tale romance. He would run me hot bubble baths with candles when I came home from work. He would make me dinners and give me massages. We spent all our free time together, and he doted on me to all of his friends. He made me feel special, like I could conquer anything just by being in his presence. For the girl in me that had never had any of this, he was like catnip. A balm on my already scorched soul. He was in my mind, the knight in shining armor, and he was going to rescue me and erase all the horrors of my past. I didn't realize until much later that no one No one can rescue you from your horrors but yourself. Little did I know the real horrors were about to begin. That was chapter 3. And I do have to say again, to reiterate, if you are in an abusive relationship, it's never too late to walk away. It's never too late to self-protect. It's never too late for self-care. Love is tricky. I mean, you can love somebody and they be toxic for you. I've been there. So that is what comes to mind for me, is just for anyone out there that is in an abusive, toxic relationship, you deserve better. Get out. Because it's never too late to walk away and self-protect. And what did I say there at the end? I've already forgotten. Sorry, because my brain is not. And yeah, that's the other thing for all these younger generations out there, thinking that you need some knight in shining armor to come and rescue you. No. Take it from me, growing up in an abusive home and always looking for someone to take place of what happened or erase everything, it starts with yourself. It starts with you. If you don't love yourself, no one else will. So become your own knight in shining armor. Don't wait. Don't be a damsel in distress waiting for your prince, because you can be your own prince. So yeah, that was chapter 3. And like I said, I will post a link below. If you like this video, please give me a thumbs up. If you want to see more, please hit the notification button and subscribe so you can get notified of any future videos. And I will see you guys next time. Thanks. Bye.